Okay, and welcome back to the third developer tutorial. I'm calling this one advanced graphics, or maybe I should call it layered graphics. We did look at some basic graphics last time, so let's head for my folder. It's called Shipyard, all sorts of stuff here. And we're going to load this one. I'm using not Photoshop, but a program called Paint Shop. It's the same, different company, a different brand, but the functions are mostly the same. The important part is that it supports layered graphics and also some simple vector graphics. And okay, so here is my file for the small base ships. There's a lot of stuff here. To make it a bit easier, I think I'm going to instead demonstrate how I would create this from scratch. So I would create a new, and I would go with let's say 1800 times 1800. The important part here is that I want to have space for the entire firing arc thing. In my existing file I've just made an exact fit. Here I can give myself some extra space. Raster background, and like we talked about, 60 per inch, and background color is transparent. Okay, there it is. I now have the background. Now I'd like to create a base, and to do so I have my measurements. So if I go to my measurements spreadsheet, I can see that a small base ship, the ship token, it should be 93 times 169. I'm rounding a bit here, rounding to the nearest odd number, so that I can more easily center things. You can round to even numbers, then you have to center a little bit different, but I've chosen to go with only odd numbers here. And rails are a thing. They are about 5 pixels wide. I have also added a let's call it a rail front and back. That's just 1 pixel, and on some of the models it looks like there is no plastic rail, if I can call it that, front and rear, but most tokens are cut so that there is a small space in the front and the rear, so I've kept that. So 19.3 times 169. I'm just going to drag it over to my other screen, which you can't see. There it was, and I'm doing a rectangle, and it's going to be black, and it's going to be black border, and I'm not anti-aliasing it, I'm just creating it like this. So how big was it? 80, 98. Yeah, well, doesn't matter. It should be 93 times 169. 93. Okay, 93 times 169. No anti-aliasing, and let's center it. Okay, there is the is the base for a small ship. And now, instead of drawing everything from scratch, I am going to just copy the rail layer from my existing here and paste it in. And you can now see that there is a light gray area around it, and the shield layer looks awfully lot like a ship base, doesn't it? And now you actually have all that you need to start. And tutorial there. Well, that's all. Save as, and of course it's a PSP image file. Yeah. This is sort of the basic, and you can of course name the layers. You can call it rails, and you can call it small shields, whatever makes keeping track of things easier. And yeah, next step is to start with ships. I already have all my ships here, but so instead of creating one from scratch, I'm going to use let's use a hammerhead. Those are new, so I'm copying over the hammerhead. And if you have any previous experience with layered graphics, you know that the order in which they appear in the list here has something to say for what is on top and what is on the bottom. So if by having rails up here, they appear on top of levels that are lower. So for example, if I make the hammerhead model visible and I decide to let's make it a little bit bigger, so that it extends out, and you can, okay, I'm just gonna fix the opacity, and you can now see that the rails and the shields, they overwrite or overlap the image file. So if I wanted to make something like a pelta where the fins, or what I should call them, or maybe the assault frigate, that tend to stick out a bit to touch on the side rails there, I would need to move the rails down below the model, and same with the shields. But most models shouldn't stick out past beyond the base, because it just gets messy. For instance, the Imperial class Star Destroyer, it's much smaller in the module than on the tabletop, and it's not because I've gotten the scale wrong, it's just because I've decided to, as far as possible, keep the models inside the limits of the base, because it looks better and it's easier to see the values underneath the graphics. Otherwise you'll have to fade the ship all the time. This isn't a problem at a real table, because when you sit or stand next to the table, you won't be looking straight down, you will be looking underneath the model. So okay, let's call this hammerhead, as to not get confused. And what I usually start with, I need an image of the actual model. So either I grab that from an FFG article. In the past I've also gotten renders from Mel's Miniatures, or I use a fairly decent camera to take top-down photos of the ship in question. That's actually what I aim to do. So once you have taken the picture of the ship, you need to scale it and put it in as a layer here. Next, you can put in the stat boxes for speed and hull. I usually try to place those so they don't overlap any firing arcs or come underneath the model, if at all possible. And then I make a scan of the ship token, and I copy that over, and you can see that underneath here. Let's remove those for the time being, and let's remove that. And the point here is we don't use the ship token for anything other than to trace the arc lines and place the line of sight dots. So to make line of sight dots, I just make a layer, make that visible, and I just use for instance, a circular brush with hardness 40, and I color it yellow, of course, and I just put a dot like this on top of that, and that gives us a nice lost dot. Next, I draw the token arcs, those being in the arcs on the token. And for rebels, I use not this one really, but a reddish color, and I just use a pen tool. I find the center, and I just now it's some sort of odd connect segments. No, okay, there. And even when you scan and the cutting process, it can make things come a few pixels off. So I usually do this 870 and 870. Okay, it checks out, and this is in the center. And then I do the same for the rear arc. It comes together quite nicely here. And then I usually make the no, there were two. What is this path? Okay, so oh yeah, this is my new path, token vector. So I usually make this with 2. So now then I have what I can call a ideal or perfect firing arc. That would be so it didn't get pasted. Why not? Oh, I need to have it selected, and there. And this would be okay if arcs came from the exact center of the token and went out to the corners, like a command cruiser or assault cruiser or that kind of thing. What I use this for is I can go straight here, and you can see the arc lines coming out there. So basically the only thing that I do is that I zoom in, I use the pen tool again, and this time I use width 1, and then I just draw new lines out here so that they match the lines on the tokens. And then I make sure that this is Y364, so I'll make sure it's Y364 here as well, and same with the back, with the aft arc. So I'm gonna remove this one because we don't need that. but won't let me select. Just there you go. Which leaves me with something like this when I've and if I now turn off this and I turn off the arc vectors, I can now export this as a PNG file for the unfaded ship model, and then I set the opacity to say 50, and then I export it again as the faded version. With the hammerhead, that's not such a big point, but take the Victory for example, you can't see all the lost dots without fading. Same with the Imperial class Star Destroyer and many others. So once you've exported it, you have to resize the files, or you don't have to, but you should, because you don't need an 1800 times 1800 canvas here. You could resize it down to so that it just fits around the ship. That saves pixels and saves memory in the module. So the next step is a bit more involved, and this could probably be done using vector graphics in a vector drawing program like Illustrator, but I already had all these layered images, and at the time I didn't really want to get involved in a vector program, have to learn that, so I just used what I could in this painting program to create the arcs, and essentially how it goes is I need to if we take back the token vectors, why did they go invisible? Alright, there we are. Now the token, the point is, once you have arcs that are offset, it doesn't look like this anymore. Then it looks like this. So the front arc, where you measure from the front corner, that's going to be a bit different from the side, where you have to measure from this point here. So you get a slight discrepancy here. And the aft arc, there is no discrepancy, because as you can see with the hammerhead, the rear arc comes out there. So with those perfect broadsiders, there will be no offset here. It will be perfect looking. But for other ships like the ISD, VSD, Quasar, Liberty, many others, it will look like this. And to create this graphic using PaintShop or Photoshop, it's a bit it's not complicated as such, it's just a bit involved. So we already have the arcs done, remember, so we don't have to think about that. We're also going to remove the model because we don't need that, and we can remove the lost dots as well. And we don't need the token vectors, and we do definitely not need the rails because we measure from cardboard to cardboard, remember, and shields are also irrelevant. So you're left with a black square like this with the arcs drawn on. And well, the next point is making something like this. This is just me having made a lot of circles, which I have of the correct size, which I get from the measurements page, so that the black circle is exactly big enough, the blue and the red matching short, medium and long range, and then I chop each circle in 4 to represent, well, each corner here, and then I overlap them something like that. And then you of course have to fill out the room in between using some boxes or whatever I should call it. If I go down to the no, let's not go down, it will only confuse you. So let's just copy this layer over here, and for now it's invisible, but as soon as I make it visible you will see that it looks like this. And the reason I haven't filled in the top and bottom here is that we are going to use this bit just for the side arcs, while we use the ideal layer for the front and rear arcs. So basically what you see here is a image that should get pulled down a bit so it doesn't obscure everything that comes. So I'm going to put it down here. And just for the fun of it, let's select this box here, and you can see that it doesn't quite add up. You can see that the corner here, it should align perfectly with where the arc line crosses the cardboard. So if I hide this one, you can see that it can't be up here, it has to be brought down a bit. And the simplest way to do that, of course, is to grab this layer here. It won't do that. Why won't it? Okay, and then you can just adjust it so it matches. And you would do this with the other side as well. And now you'd have to maybe adjust the black and the blue here, or maybe not. That depends on so that it doesn't warp the ends here. And then you would have something that looks good to go to create the hammerhead side arcs, and I would then hide the hammerhead entirely, and if I am comfortable with this, then I would merge. Well, let's not merge too much here. I'm just gonna merge this. So merge visible, and now it's merged, and I would go here and I would set the opacity 20, and I will also use this for the front and rear arc here. Opacity is already 20. And now I would need a copy of the arc vectors. Duplicate, then I would drag those two down here, and I would be sure to have this selected, and I would merge visible again. And since I set opacity down for the colors but not the arcs, they are clearly visible now, and I can do the same for front and rear arc. Merge visible there. Now I can get rid of the parts I don't need. This is going to be front, rear. This is gonna be sides. Let's do front, rear first. And let's use a magic wand selection tool and just what is this? Feather? No, it's not behaving at all like it usually does. Okay, there I got it. And then I'll just, oh right, not good. Okay. Yeah, there is an opening there in the center. So if I do but for some reason it doesn't. Okay, do I do this? No. I need to unselect something first. Here. Okay. Don't let that confuse you. And now I have a nice front arc selection here. And side arcs. Oops. I have to have the correct layer selected here, of course. Alright, same problem there. I'll have to add a bit in the middle. I did it again. I have to unselect with the magic tool first, then I can paint. Okay, I knew that, but I always forget. So, there. And, well, I didn't really pay attention to the tolerance and so here. So you can see there is a very, very faint trace here of whatever color was here before. And I can't have that because it will completely, it's not that important, but it tends to fool the eye. So when you look at the arcs, you are convinced that they are all wrong and stuff, which they aren't, of course, but appearances can be deceiving. So front, and let's look if there are some more ghost pixels down here. Yeah, sometimes I manage to tweak the settings so I avoid those. Other times it's easier just to do this, and I'll probably have to check the front sides too. Yes, same problem, of course, because I used the same tolerances. Did I manage to maybe delete something on the other layer now? That is very easy to do. Very easy to get confused while swapping between layers like that. Of course, this is only applicable to ranges. Distances are measured from the plastic, so they are the same for every ship of the same size. So you just have to sort of do this once, and you don't have to bother with the arcs, of course, just the distance. So the distance bands look a little bit different. Now we have it. We have removed the trash. This didn't look 100% pretty, but it will disappear beneath the ship token, so it's completely unimportant. And there you go. And oddly enough, I think we have managed to recreate exactly the hammerhead firing arcs. So of course, then you want to export this, and you could trim the canvas or not. It's not so big a difference here. So It's not that important to trim away as it is when you have the ship bases. And just export this as a PNG file, and it's ready to be used inside the module. So there are two products here. It's the ship token with the shield dials and so forth that gets shrunk the canvas, and actual firing arcs, and of course the distance overlay. So you get something like this. Well, arc squadron is just named so that it will be with the other range bands. So here you can see the Quasar, the Pelta, the Hammerhead, and the Architans. And this other here are done by Ransberger. So you can see the blue color is just a tiny bit different, but that's not important. And the ships will look like this when exported. And you have one that's not faded and one that is faded. And of course, like I said, distances. There you have just large, medium, small, and squadron, because it's all the same. It's measured from the plastic, and then are no arcs, so there is no offset. I hope that wasn't too complicated. You probably have to try it. I can let you have access to the files, these files, a copy of them. That could perhaps be useful, but most people want to use Photoshop, so then it's probably best just to start from scratch. It's a little bit of work initially to set up. I have 3 files, one for small, medium, and large, because I don't want too many layers. It gets very cluttered. The small file is already too big, so I might split that up into an Imperial and Rebel small file. And you just have to do it a few times, and then I think it won't be so difficult. Well, squadrons obviously are the same, only a lot easier, because there is only the black base, and you just put a squadron on top. I can show that. Shipyard. If I can even find the squadrons. Of course they aren't here. The squadron images are, you don't need layers for those. You just need either to get photos of them or make little graphics for them, which you add to the squadrons inside the module. All the ranges and distance bands are the same, and there are no arcs, and much easier to do. Well, that's it for this third tutorial. Goodbye.